to order the Wheat Ridge Planning Commission meeting of December 7th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please take roll?
Jerry DiTullio.
Here.
Christine Disney.
Here.
Daniel Gravy.
Here.
Patrick Quinn.
Here.
Janet Leo. Here. And Jonathan Shelkey and Will Kearns are absent tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to the order of the agenda, or can we approve by unanimous consent any changes? So the agenda will stand as published. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of November 2nd, 2023?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and it was seconded by Commissioner Disney. Any changes to the minutes? Please poll the commission.
Motion approved 4-0 with 1 abstaining.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. This is time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on the agenda. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak on the agenda tonight or on public comment tonight? How about on Zoom?
There are a few people on Zoom. If you'd like to speak on anything other than what's on public hearing, can you please raise your hand? Sorry, nobody has raised their hand.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the public hearing, item 7A, Commissioner Quinn. I'm going to open the public hearing. Commissioner Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case number WZ 23-10, an application filed by, and apologies when I butcher this, Elam Nakui for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to mixed-use neighborhood on a property located at 10390 West 38th Avenue. The request, the owner of the property at 10390 West 38th Avenue is requesting approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to mixed-use neighborhood. The zone change will result in zoning designation that will allow for the redevelopment and revitalization of the property. The owner of the property intends to redevelop the site for approximately 10 townhomes, which are not permitted in C1, but are permitted in the MU-N zone district.
Thank you. Before we start, anybody who wants to speak on this agenda item tonight, please raise your right hand so I can swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter? Please say I do. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the staff presentation. Sounds like you need some battery power there. There
Okay,
it goes.
I think we're good. Good evening. My name is Elena Olivas-Loeta, and I'm a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. I'm presenting case number WZ 2310, which is a request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to mixed-use neighborhood at 10390 West 38th Avenue. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, no, you're fine, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. Do you want me to? Oh, good call. Thank you. I did want to make a quick note. Staff did receive questions from commissioners prior to this hearing, which was very appreciated. So I will do my best to answer them throughout my presentation. The subject property is outlined in red. The property is located on the south side of West 38th Avenue between Miller Street and Lee Street, west of Kipling Street. The property measures a little over half an acre in size and contains a commercial building built in 1960. The property has existed in its current configuration for a number of years, with a series of unsuccessful commercial ideas that did not come to fruition. All previous proposals would not have been supported by the comprehensive plan or by the goals and vision for the corridor being too intense for the context of the neighborhood. This is a zoning map of the area. The subject property is currently zoned C1 and is outlined in red. Nearby uses in the area include a mix of commercial and low-density residential. The site is surrounded by a mix of zoning, including C1 to the east and west, R2 to the south, and a planned residential development to the north. This is a view of the subject property looking south from West 38th Avenue. This is a view of the property looking east from Miller Street. And this is a view of one of the established neighborhoods from the subject property just across West 38th Avenue looking north. The applicant intends to rezone the property to redevelop it for approximately 10 townhome units. Maximum density is calculated based on net area, and although not developable, the existing ditch easement was not excluded from that calculation. Residential uses are not permitted in the C1 zoning, but are permitted in the mixed-use neighborhood zone district. The current C1 zoning allows for a variety of commercial uses, including retail and office. By contrast, MUN zoning allows residential uses, commercial uses, or a mix of the two, and the permitted retail uses are greater in number. The MUN designation would provide more flexibility for revitalization of the property and will provide standards for future redevelopment. The MUN zone district is appropriate for this segment and particularly on this property given its size and its location and the end goal for the site. MUN would enable the applicant to revitalize the site and bring additional housing options to the community, focusing on thoughtful and high-quality design. This table summarizes the current and proposed zoning's development standards. Most of the proposed zoning development standards would apply to the redevelopment of the property. Most notable differences between the two zone districts include setback requirements and build-to requirements. The build-to requirement for MUN is 0 to 12 feet on both street frontages. Because the presence of the ditch easement on the northern portion of the site, the build-to will be measured from the easement boundary rather than the front property line. The design standards in MUN are strict and include architectural standards, open space requirements, setbacks, and parking requirements. As a requirement of the zone change process, a neighborhood meeting was held on August 30th, 2023 in a virtual Zoom meeting setting. 11 members of the public attended the meeting. There was overwhelming support for the revitalization of the property from neighbors and general concerns about traffic and parking in the area, the maintaining of existing mature trees, and soil remediation from the site's previous use as a gas station. Staff is not aware of any completion of further environmental studies since the neighborhood meeting was held. But the applicant did work with the state several years ago to get the underground tanks officially closed. Because Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, as well as completed an internal review. We did not receive concerns or objections from outside agencies. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners and occupants within a 600-foot radius. Staff received one phone call in support of the request prior to this hearing. We use several criteria to evaluate zone change requests, which includes consistency with the comprehensive plan. Staff believes that the proposed MUN zoning is consistent with policies and goals in the city's comp plan. West 38th Avenue is a primary east-west thoroughfare in the city, is classified as a principal arterial, and transitions to residential character to the north, south, and west side of the site. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as neighborhoods. This designation identifies areas where residents of all ages can live safely and comfortably. Defining characteristics of an established neighborhood in the comprehensive plan are consistent character mature landscaping, high rates of reinvestment and dwelling ownership, consistent maintenance, and high desirability. A stated goal in the comprehensive plan is to promote reinvestment in underutilized properties and to promote a mix of neighborhood supporting uses, including residential use and office use. This zone change request supports the comprehensive plan by enabling reinvestment in the property, by expanding the permitted uses, and by aligning the zoning with the city's goals to improve the appearance, mix of uses, property values, and overall vitality of the area. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. Based on character and land use patterns of the area, the MUN zone district is more appropriate than C1 in terms of allowed uses for the property. For that reason, the zone change should not have an adverse effect. Staff finds the zone change to MUN is supported by the city's comprehensive plan, specifically the vision for the conversion of underutilized properties to serve as a mix of residential and small-scale commercial developments. This zone change request supports the comprehensive plan by enabling investment in the property and by allowing for more housing options in the area, maintaining the character of existing neighborhoods. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have, if the applicant wants to, you can make a presentation. If you do, please come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. You only have to come up if you want to add additional information from the staff.
Thank you. We're prepared to answer any questions.
Okay. Thanks. So now we'll move on to public comment. Then we'll have questions from the council. So public comment, do we have anybody here who'd like to speak on this agenda item? Come on up and please state your name and your last name for the record and your address.
Hi there. My name is Tom Brickey. I live at 4 Rangeview Drive in Wheat Ridge, just a slightly bit north.
Can you actually spell your last name and give me your address,
Sure.
please?
B as in boy, R-I-C-K-E-Y.
Thank you.
And your address?
4 Rangeview Drive.
Could you move the mic up a little bit? You're a little bit tall there.
Okay, better?
Thanks. That's good.
Very good. I just wish to say, with all due respect to the staff person, I would take exception with the idea that there was, or at least is, overwhelming support from the neighborhood for this development. I think at the street, Miller Street there, is entirely single-family housing. It's all, this development with 10 townhomes is entirely inconsistent with the residential properties on that street. I wonder greatly, I worry greatly about the parking situation. You're talking at least 10 cars, one per each dwelling, as many as 20. Where would they all park? I think further, sometimes exiting south on Miller Street onto 38th, certainly turning left, is difficult at times in the day. I think this is an adverse effect. It adds substantially to traffic in the area. So I would say for those reasons, I would not support this at all as someone in the neighborhood. I think that if we wish to develop this for residential purposes, I would keep it consistent with the tenor of the neighborhood, which is single-family housing, residential development. So those are my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Anybody else like to speak from the public? Please give us your first name and last name and your address.
Sure, thank you. My name is Richard Kauke, my last name C-A-U-C-H-I, and we live on 3651 Miller Court, which is just one street west of Miller Street that's been talked about here. I'm not here to directly oppose or support, but I do want to express some general concerns and at least members, local resident interest. People may recall the incident where this was supposed to become a marijuana store, and we had, I don't know, maybe 75 people who came and talked about that. So again, just in terms of the level of interest, I think it is there. In the brief remarks that have already been made, I myself was looking at the pros and cons in terms of the density. While I think residential is the way to go, and I think we support the idea of residential, I do think the previous speaker noting that we're going to put 10 units of housing in a space that in that neighborhood generally has one or at most two places two homes is a point of concern. I think the details may matter, exactly how the architectural designs are. And I realize that the zoning regulations do not detail pro or con some of those factors. But I did want to at least indicate neighborhood interest and sort of keeping a close eye on what they mean by the 10 units that would be built. Are they modest? Are they discrete? Are they spread to all parts of all the square feet of the property? Is there any part of this that should remain non-residential or some other use? So I know this is not a definitive yes, no, but I wanted to at least put that on the record.
Thank you. To answer the question about the marijuana shop, that can't go there now because of the restrictions that were passed previously, right? There's no way.
Yes, that's correct.
And that was because we had a limitation on the number of marijuana shops that could be in the city of Wheat Ridge, and this property is not eligible, and this zoning isn't eligible either, correct?
Correct.
Thanks. On the density, there's no plans yet, so they're talking up to 10 units. I mean, there's no plans or designs for this property yet, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Would the applicant like to address any of the concerns that was mentioned? Come on up. Please state your name and last name for the record and your address.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Barron, B-E-R-R-E-N-D. I'm with Summit Design and Engineering. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Richard, for your comments. Just to address some of the concerns, it is some of the concerns we heard at the neighborhood meeting earlier in August, and we feel that overall the proposal on the table is actually lowering the density potential of the property, going from a commercial zone district down to the mixed-use zone district. We can go from upwards of 50 feet in the commercial zone district today down to 35 feet if there's only a single use. So that really lowers the bulk plane and potential density. Furthermore, the overall capacity on the land is much more reduced with residential construction than it would be if it were strictly commercial. So we think that is much more befitting of the neighborhood context as we looked around and we drove those neighborhoods and whatnot. Given that it still is within either a much higher density zone district than single family residential, we acknowledge that there's a step up in total massing and total dwelling units per acre. That said, the overall future design concepts right now we're looking at are of a townhouse nature. So that is a much lower density per acre and a higher quality of residential stock than say a stacked flat or an apartment structure, which we could get 20 to 30 units easily on that site just if we were trying to force fit that on the site. So right now we have looked at upwards of 10 to 13 units. There's no way we can reasonably fit 13, we feel, given the constraint of the creek that's in the box culvert today. So 10 to 12 seems feasible. We intend to probably hold street character, so those will face both 38th Avenue and Miller Drive. We have another concept where there are potentially either townhouses fronting the open space, which is a stormwater detention facility that the city, I believe, owns immediately to the east of the subject property. So the goal is that the massing will be broken up architecturally and from a character standpoint to really take advantage of both the urban character as well as being sensitive to the neighboring property. Parking, it was definitely brought up in both the neighborhood meeting as well as other comments we had heard. Our goal is to park the property entirely within the site. So there would be structured parking that is tucked under either the townhome units or something in the back or some combination thereof that helps screen the building and any activity from neighboring properties, as well as allowing all those cars to hopefully disappear within the interior of the site. Obviously, there will not be any parking on 30th Avenue. It's a major arterial that would not be feasible or allowed. And Miller Drive would just not be very feasible for that either, given the setback distance we're turning off of the stop sign at 38th and Miller. So hopefully that really addresses some of the things. Yes, architecture is yet to come. That would be reviewed in a full site development application. We would follow all the city's guidelines with respect to massing, architectural character, fenestration, all of those other things to develop something that would be very homogeneous with the neighborhood and take advantage of that concept. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to commission questions. Commissioner Disney?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I do
I'm
have
sorry.
two possibly on Zoom.
Okay, sorry, we have some more public comment on the.
If you are on Zoom and you would like to speak for 3 minutes, can you please raise your hand? Okay, I have one. Fran Langdon, you are welcome to speak. You have 3 minutes. If you can give me your first, last name, spelling, and address, please. Well, I allowed her to talk. Let's try it again. Ms. Langdon, can you hear us? You might need to unmute. Shoot, it's not working. Let's go to some questions and I'll see if we can. We'll come back to
We're
you.
going to come back to public comment, and thanks for answering the questions for the public. Now we'll go on to Commissioner Disney.
I drive up and down 38 a lot. And I think that in that particular part of that block, I don't think townhomes are out of character for the neighborhood, although I know it brings some dismay to people who live there. But if you go up and down the street, there's planned developments and multi-unit housing all up and down 38. So I don't think it's out of character for the area. My concern, and I understand that as builders have projects, they have to make money. You're not in it for a nonprofit. I just have concerns. I think 10 units is more appropriate in terms of the density. I would ask that you keep that in mind. Try to, I think it would be a lot less impact in terms of the traffic. So I feel kind of like I'm voting in the blind here because we haven't seen a site development. I don't think we'll vote on that. So once we vote on this, that's it. So I'm going to take your word for it that that's what we'll get based on what you've presented tonight. Construction costs, I am assuming, would determine the number of units that you would put on that piece of property?
I just wanted to make a quick comment. Based on the land or the net area of the property, the maximum units that they could be allowed by the code with the density limit of 21 dwelling units per acre would be actually around 11 units. So them proposing 10 is about the maximum that they would get anyways.
All right, thank you. She answered my question.
Thank you. I apologize for
Sorry.
that. We had originally programmed some more in there, but we will obviously comply with the code. To answer your question, could you repeat that too? It was 10 was your ideal, yes?
That was my wish,
And
but I was
construction
just-
cost,
yeah,
correct? Yes,
determined.
obviously, construction cost drives it. There will be a pro forma, but ultimately, I think parking and a couple of other logistical challenges with the creek is probably actually going to drive costs on that project. With the box culvert that, we call it a box culvert, I don't know what its proper term is because we've never actually encountered something quite like that on the site. The Lena Gulch moves through the front of this site immediately adjacent to 30th Avenue. It is right now paved over structurally with a concrete lid. We need to maintain that cross-sectional volume, obviously, for flood control and whatnot. But the ideal is that we would be able to create that into an urban plaza or some sort of anti-space between the street and the front doors of the house, because we obviously can't put residential that close to the street. So there'd be a significant cost to developing that space to create some urban area there that is that buffer, because we can't put structured residential on that anyway. So to answer your question, the cost is definitely driving the vote here, much more than the land area.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Gravy? Commissioner Leo? Would you, I think, is your mic on, please?
Does that zone change, the zone change is not just in the area of the development, it's from Miller to Lee, is that correct?
No, that's not correct. It's only on this property, so only on the subject property. It would be changed from commercial 1 to mixed-use neighborhood if the zone change is approved. It would only be for the property.
So you will, so the zone change would just be that it's marked in red.
Correct.
So it's a little square within C1, which goes all the way down 30th.
Correct, yes.
Is there a reason for that? Is there a reason why that C1 would not be changed between Miller and Lee?
The property just east of the subject site is owned by another property owner, so they haven't applied for a zone change, so it would just remain as is.
So they haven't applied for it, but it's just very strange to have that little square sitting there with a different zone.
Yeah.
That's just my observation.
Yep, it will remain as is unless that property owner decides to pursue a zone change, then it will remain the same.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Quinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Elena, for the presentation. And you probably answered this question, but this is not a dig in any ways, but you go really fast and I listen really slow. So
I'm working on slowing down, so that's good feedback. I'll keep it in mind.
the one question I did have was on the setback, and I sent my question in earlier. What is the build to area? Can you explain what that is for me?
Yeah, so you typically hear about a setback, which is a certain distance that you have to be from the property line. A build to is the opposite, where you have to be up to the property line a certain distance. So in this particular case, the build to is 0 to 12 feet. So they would be required to have building up to 0 to 12 feet on Miller Street, and on the north side, which would be 38th Avenue, since there's the ditch easement there, we would be taking that build to from the boundary of the easement, as opposed to typically, it would be that front property line as well, but it'll be set back a little bit further on 38th Avenue just because of that easement.
And that's from the right-of-way line. They have 0 to 12 feet that the building has to start. Is that correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Yep, it would be from the property line, actually, where the property line starts, yep.
Okay, and I think, height limit, since it's going to be residential, is 35 feet.
Correct.
And the only concern, and I appreciate you coming in, and I appreciate the citizens that were here speaking on this as well. The height on that side of the street in the wintertime, when we get a lot of snow, shades it quite a bit and creates a little bit of an ice and snow hazard, if you will, and we all know 38's getting a lot busier, so I have just a little concern with that, but probably has really nothing to do with the zoning application here, but just a notable note.
They will have to meet, we do have a bulk plane requirement, which kind of helps with that. So the higher up you go, the more narrow the building has to get to allow for things like that, light and air and whatnot. So they will have to comply with that, with the bulk plane. So that will help a little bit with that concern.
And that easement in the front will also help because it actually provides a greater setback, given that the build-to can only be to the ditch easement.
Gotcha. I was just a little confused in my brain on where 38th is, but thank you very much for everything.
I agree. I'm a visual also, so it's hard to like imagine these things.
Before we go back to public comment, does anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Leo?
I just want to, I was looking at this map again, so can you tell me, is this red line does it really stop before Miller and stop? Is there a landowner that has that land along Miller and the small strip along 38th, or is this red line just not accurate? Does this piece of property go to 38th?
So, it's just which part is she?
I mean, is there really that little strip on 38th and that?
No, so that would just be the public right-of-way. So
Okay, but
this
who's-
map is not actually survey accurate, so it's not going to show exactly where the property lines are. It's just sort of a generalization, but
That was my question.
Yes.
And so the land, where is the actual land that is owned? The landowner of this piece of property, where does that go to?
I can't tell you exactly, but where I have the red outline is a generalization of the boundary of the property.
Well, that's my question. I mean, we don't have the strip along Miller and the strip along 38th that is owned by somebody else, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's not, the person who owns the eastern side of that whole C1 area does not own that little strip along 38th and a little strip along Miller.
No,
Okay, so it's not just a little pocket sitting there.
correct, no.
Okay, I just wanted to, I mean, we're talking about the zone change here, and I just wanted to be clear. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you're saying that that property on both sides is an easement around that, correct? The
No,
right-of-way.
I think the confusion is the image that I showed, the aerial image, since those lines, there's distortion obviously with the mapping system that we use. It's showing that there's strips between the red line that outlines the property and where the street starts. And so I think that's causing confusion. So the red line is just to give you an idea of which property we're talking about, but it is not survey accurate, and the lines can kind of be skewed a little bit. So the property line and where the right-of-way starts does line up in real life, but not according to this diagram, because it's not
Right, so
survey
it
accurate.
is a right-of-way issue and easements, more or less? Just to
No-
clarify for everybody.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. So the easement is actually on the property itself.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so if you were to draw if the zone change is approved, and you were to redraw it, would the zone change go to 38th and to Miller?
yes,
So that if we saw it, then it was be recolored, it would go 38th Miller and then the edge of that?
yes, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Gravy?
In a development like this conversation about the right-of-way to the streets did make me think, is there a requirement to build sidewalks on these street lines where they meet the property in this kind of development?
Yes, there will be, yes. Yep, typically with the site plan review, there are, if there are public improvement requirements, they would be required to build those improvements. In some cases where it's not feasible to construct the improvements, sometimes we'll just ask for a fee in lieu, which would be the total cost of whatever it would be to construct those improvements, but they would just pay the money for it instead of actually constructing them. But that's something that our engineering department will evaluate once, if the zone change is approved and we move on to site planning, our engineering department will determine how much right-of-way dedication, if any, is required, and what public improvements will be required.
Okay, so now we'll go back to public comment, if we can get,
Yeah, we'll try it again. So, Ms. Langdon, let's try this again. Can you try and speak, Ms. Langdon? Can you try now? Okay, there's one other person, we'll see if they can hear us. Scott and Laura Sicard, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have
Okay.
3 minutes. If you can give me your first and last name and address, that would be great.
I'm Scott Seacard. I'm actually,
Well, we could hear you. Can you still try to speak, please?
can you hear me now?
Yes, go
Hello,
ahead,
can
we
you
can
Yes.
hear you.
Yep.
Okay, 3685 Miller Court, Scott Seacard. Okay,
Okay, and you have 3 minutes.
thank you. I'm Richard Couchy's
Oh, no.
next door neighbor, and we live on a street that has a, did you lose me?
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
And the parking is an issue. There are parking spaces at the building across the street, catty corner from my property. However, if this is a multifamily development, that means family, right? And kids grow up and get cars. And guess what? There's only 2-car garages in your development, right?
Well, let's go ahead and make your
Suddenly we have an
comment.
overflow situation
Go ahead and
on
make
our
your-
Yeah,
street
if you
where
can just
I have,
ask all your questions and everything, your questions will be addressed at the end.
well, I have a concern. That's not really a question. Is there going to be overflow parking for this site to where they're not actually parking, kids and the cars, the potential future cars that will be on the site, parking up the neighborhood?
Okay, is that your only concern then? Mr. Sicard?
Well, let's go ahead and have the applicant answer the question again about the parking, because we've discussed it once. Go ahead and reiterate what you mentioned earlier.
Sure, thank you. And there was a subtle variation on that question, so I appreciate the question. Thank you, Mr. Sicard. It is unknown yet how many parking spaces per dwelling unit we will be able to incorporate onto the site. However, the Wheat Ridge Development Code prescribes the number of parking spaces on site per dwelling unit given that zone district change. So we would obviously be complying to that. Given the type of unit and the expense for these units being 10 units, these are not apartment dwellings, so they are not a low income type product. If you're buying a product with that cost, the expectation will be that you will have interior garage spaces. There will not be a surface lot behind the building with 15 cars parked in it. That's just not the type of product that this would be. So our goal would be to have 1 to 2 spaces within the building immediately adjacent or under each unit. And we have explored a couple of options with additional structures complying with setbacks on the south and east property line to provide additional indoor parking.
Thank you.
So Mr. Sicard had about a minute left. Are you willing to give
Yeah,
him his last
if he
minute?
has a minute
Okay.
left.
Let's see if he can. All right, Mr. Sicard, if you can unmute, and if we can hear you, you have about a minute left for any other concerns.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. The question is that I do live across the street from another unit, another multifamily unit. And they have adequate parking for 2 cars. But we have a situation where, okay, they have kids, and go to high school, et cetera, they get cars. That's the situation. It's a hypothetical, but I'm seeing it in action in front of my house. I have their kids parking in front of my house now at this point. That is my concern. I just wanted to bring that up as a potential concern for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's just try one more time for Fran Langdon, and then she'll have to go to the city council meeting if we can't get her tonight.
Okay, Ms. Langdon, if you can hear me, I have allowed you to talk. If you can unmute. Yeah, I'm not getting anything from her. Her hand is up, but
Yeah, I see that.
that's it.
Well, Fran Langdon, you'll have to probably make your comments at the city council meeting, because tonight's a recommendation of yes or no. The city council will make the final decision sometime in the future, and you're welcome to go to that meeting and talk. It goes for everybody has a comment. Do we have anybody else that has to speak on Zoom?
No, that is it.
Thank you. Any more questions from the commission before we close the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and a motion is in order. Commissioner Quinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to recommend approval of case number WZ 23-10, a request for approval of a zone change from commercial C1 to mixed-use neighborhood, MU-N, for property located at 10390 West 38th Avenue for the following reasons. Number one, the proposed zone change will promote the public health, safety, and welfare of the community and does not result in an adverse effect on the surrounding area. Number two, utility and infrastructure adequately serves the property. Number three, the proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan. Number four, the zone change will provide additional opportunity and reinvestment in the area. And finally, the criteria used to evaluate a zone change supports the request.
Is there a second? We have a motion for approval. It was seconded by Commissioner Leo. Questions, comments before we vote on the main motion?
I have a comment. I'm going to vote for this project. And the reason why, I have seen other projects come before the commission that I wasn't in favor of because it was too much building on too small of a lot, and yours is bigger. We need housing in this town. I know that, myself included, want to maintain the character of the city with that nice 50s neighborhood feel. But if we fight for that, to maintain that, this development is entirely appropriate for the area and the location on 38th Avenue, being a little denser and not farther up Miller Street, or it's right where it should be. If we start limiting these types of projects and the housing costs in this city are going to increase exponentially, just like what happened with Boulder. They limited growth, and I couldn't buy my house right now. And that's just happened because of the way the economy is. So I think that it's important for us to keep in sight that it's critical that we provide a variety of housing options in this community. I think this project is appropriate for this site, and that's why I'm going to vote yes.
Any other comments? Commissioner Quinn?
Yes, I would like to, I agree with Commissioner Disney. The options on that property, I've lived in this neighborhood for 30-plus years, and it's been a little bit of everything from a gas station to who knows what. And to have just one or two single-family homes on that's probably not very profitable for the landowners, and it's really not very practical. So I think 10 units, I'm in the construction industry, and I don't think that's out of order. I think the zoning, all of the rules and requirements for the mixed use fall in line. I don't believe it's going to be sore eye kind of a thing. And I'd like to take the property owner's face value on the word that they're not going to, build anything hideous. So I believe them. So I'm in support of this zone change. Thank you.
Please poll the commission.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you for everybody coming, staff and applicant and the public. So we'll move on to item number 8, which is old business. Looks like there's nothing listed. Jana, do you have anything?
I don't have anything under old business, but I do for updates, if you're ready. Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to new business, agenda item 9.
Okay, thank you. For upcoming dates, we will not be having a meeting on December 21st. We probably wouldn't have a quorum even if we did have an item, but we don't have any items, so that worked out well. The next meetings on the schedule would be January 4th and January 18th, and at this time, we are not sure that we have any items for either of those, but we will certainly keep you posted. I did want to welcome our newest senior planner, Ella Stevie. She's been sitting and observing the meeting, but I just wanted to let her introduce herself to you. She's going to be working on special projects, including the management of the comprehensive plan process and contract and that sort of thing, and also with some additional support for community engagement. So with that, I will turn it over to Ella.
Great. Thank you, Jana. Can you hear me? Sounds like I'm on. All right. My name's Ella Stevie, and I am the senior neighborhood planner. I started a little over 2 months ago. So I've been in the planning field for 11 years now. Most recently, I was a senior planner in Denver. And then I actually moved to Wheat Ridge almost 3 years ago. And as I'm sure you all can imagine, pretty quickly was able to see that Wheat Ridge is a pretty wonderful and special community. So I feel really honored to be able to bring my planning experience to this community. As Jana mentioned, I'm going to be leading the update of the comprehensive plan, which we're calling the city plan. As part of that plan, we'll be, in our scope of work, we'll be coming to Planning Commission 3 different times for check-ins throughout that 15-month process, in addition to obviously the adoption process. So I really look forward to working with you all then, and yeah, seeing the work that you do here. Thank you.
Thank you. Guess we'll move on to commissioner updates. Oh, do you have one more, Jana?
I just wanted to give you a couple of quick
Oh.
updates. If you didn't know already, we have COs issued for Chick-fil-A and also First Watch. So please visit when you can. We've got a couple of projects that are very close to COs, and that's the Commons on 38th, that's a townhome project, and then the Tabor Lake Apartments, which was formerly the Howard Johnson. So those are getting close, and I'll have an update for those at your next meeting. I also wanted to let you know, I think hopefully you saw the Mayor's Matters, and the Projects and Properties map has been out for a couple of weeks now. We are going to, there's a video that was done, and we're going to be doing a formal launch in the next couple of weeks, week to 2 weeks probably. It's going to be pushed out via press release on social media and other avenues. And then I did also want to mention that the comprehensive plan, which is now called the city plan, so I need to train myself to actually say that, the contract award is going to City Council on Monday. So it's moving along right on schedule. That's all I have.
Good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Quinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I discovered that I'm getting tech savvy here. So that was real handy to have up here on the dais. I would be remiss by not wishing my mother a happy 76th birthday today on Pearl Harbor Day. So happy birthday, Mom.
Thank you. Commissioner Disney? Commissioner Gravy? Commissioner Leo? I guess the only update I had is that after the special session for the legislature, the tax rolls, which are created by the assessor, have to be redone because they changed the assessment rate and how much will be coming off the assessment value. Residential property will be at 6.7% rate and a reduction of $55,000 off of the assessed value. For commercial, it's $30,000 off commercial value and 26.95, I believe, for commercial property rates. So with all that changes, the assessor has to redo all of the data, the tax roll, and then that delays the treasurer's office, my office, from generating the property tax bills about 3 weeks. So the property tax bills will be going out 2 to 3 weeks later than normal, but the due dates are the same because special districts are watching for that revenue to function. Now, if you get that bill late and the due date is, you're past the due date, the legislature also allowed the county treasurers to waive late interest on that first payment. So it shouldn't be a problem. So hopefully everybody will be able to either pay on time or we can waive late interest for that one first payment and due March 1st or February 29th. It's a leap year. So that's all I have. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody and Happy Holidays. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Gravy to adjourn. Please poll the commission.
Motion approved, 5-0.
We are adjourned.